Hello, and welcome back to the deep dive. So, we're doing something a little different today.
hmm
We are officially kicking off episode 1 of the Uncomfortable Depths podcast. And I've got a massive stack of research here, some psychological studies, and honestly, some photos I really, really wish I hadn't seen.
It's great to be here. And I think Uncomfortable Depths is the perfect title. We aren't just talking about water today. We're talking about a very specific, almost visceral feeling that I think a lot of us have, but maybe don't have the words for.
I want to start with a picture. I was browsing the source material earlier, and I saw this one photo. It was just an oil rig leg, this massive rusted pillar disappearing into absolute black water, nothing else.
Oh, we know that one.
Just metal and darkness, and I felt like physically sick. My stomach just dropped.
That reaction right there, that feeling, that is exactly what we're here to unpack today. That isn't just, I don't like swimming. That's a primal evolutionary alarm bell going off in your brain.
It's apparently a very popular alarm bell. We found this online community, a subreddit, with over 1.5 million members.
Wow.
1.5 million people who voluntarily get together to look at pictures that just terrify them.
That is a staggering number. I mean, that's bigger than the population of some countries,
Ah.
all bonding over Thalassophobia.
Okay, let's define the beast. Thalassophobia. We know the Greek roots, thalasso for sea, phobos for fear. But I feel like we need to clear something up right away because I used to think this just meant being afraid of water,
Right.
like afraid of getting wet or something.
And that's a crucial distinction. That would be aquaphobia. If you have aquaphobia, you might panic in a rainstorm, or you might be afraid of the water coming out of your shower. It's a fear of the substance of water itself.
Got it.
Thalassophobia is completely different. It isn't about the water, really. It's about the context of the water.
So aquaphobia is, I don't want to get wet. And thalassophobia is, I don't know what's down there, and it's huge, and I am very, very small.
Precisely. It's the fear of vastness, of depth, and arguably the most terrifying part, the void, the unknown lurking just beneath the surface.
I want to try a little visualization with you and with everyone listening. Just close your eyes for a second. Imagine you're in a small wooden rowboat.
Okay.
You're in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. Nearest land is 1,000 miles away. You look over the edge, and the water isn't tropical blue. It's deep, heavy, inky black. It goes down for miles. You can't see the bottom. You can't see anything.
And if your heart just started to race, or your palms are getting a little sweaty, or you just felt a sudden urge to curl up, well, welcome to the club.
See, even just describing it makes me uneasy. But why? Is it just because I watched Jaws too many times as a kid? Or is my brain actually, wired to hate this?
Well, Jaws certainly didn't help, and we will get to that. But this is much, much older than Steven Spielberg. We have to look at our evolutionary blueprint. Some call it the land mammal bias.
Which sounds like a very fancy way of saying we're bad at swimming.
It's a bit more nuanced than that. I mean, think about it. On land, humans are apex predators, more or less.
Yeah.
We've got gravity on our side, we have friction to run, and most importantly, we have sight. We can see threats coming from a distance.
Right. If a lion is coming at me on the savannah, I can see it. I might not be able to outrun it, but I can see it.
Exactly. But the moment you step into deep water, the ocean just negates every single one of those survival tools. You go from being an apex predator to being, well, a snack. You're clumsy,
Nice.
you're slow, and you're basically blind.
Floating snack is a very humbling description. But it makes sense. I feel like a rotisserie chicken floating in broth. I have no defenses.
And that feeling of helplessness is key. There's a study by Nicholas Carlton from 2016 that established fear of the unknown as this fundamental evolutionary driver. The ocean is the ultimate unknown.
Yeah.
If you're in a jungle and you hear a twig snap, you can hide behind a tree. In the open ocean, you're just exposed. You're a sitting duck.
It's the sensory deprivation that gets me. The sources mentioned that because deep water distorts vision, our brains just start to glitch. It's like a pattern recognition error. We stare into the blue, we don't see anything, so our brain says, well, there's probably a monster there, you just can't see it yet.
That's the brain doing its job. It's safer for your survival to imagine a shark that isn't there than to ignore a shark that is there. It's filling that dark void with threats to keep you alert.
I was reading through some of the personal accounts from that online community we mentioned, and the descriptions are so specific. It's not just, I'm scared. It's so visceral.
Did any particular comments stick out to you?
Oh, absolutely. There was one user who described it as, and I'm quoting here, the fear that Something grotesque and inhuman could suction to my legs and pull me into oblivion.
That is evocative.
Yeah. It's the texture of that fear, right? It's not just dying, it's the sensation of being touched by something slimy and alien in the dark.
And that points directly to this idea of inherited trauma. Imagine our ancient ancestors, the ones who were terrified of deep water. They stayed on the shore, they survived.
Okay.
The ones who fearlessly swam out into the abyss, well, they probably didn't pass on their genes. So in a way, thalassophobia isn't a disorder. It's a success story. It's a primal survival mechanism that's just firing in a modern context.
So biologically, we are programmed to be cowards near deep water. I can accept that. But here's where it gets really interesting for me. The psychology of this goes way deeper than just, I don't want to get eaten.
Right.
We have to talk about what the ocean represents to our minds symbolically.
This is where we leave biology and enter the realm of Freud and especially Jung. The ocean has always been this massive symbol in human psychology. Carl Jung suggested that water represents the collective unconscious.
The subconscious, the basement of the brain.
Exactly. Think of the surface of the water as your ego, the part of you that you show the world, the rational part. It's your polite conversation at a dinner party. But the depths, that's the ID. That's where all our repressed thoughts, our darkest desires, our primal fears, that's where they live.
So let me get this straight. When I look at that dark water and I feel dread, I'm not just scared of a giant squid. I might be scared of my own dark secrets.
It's a strong possibility. It's a symbolic fear of your own repressed mind. It connects to that uncanny feeling or that existential dread. It's not just a fear of pain. It's a fear of insignificance.
The sources talked about that feeling of being a speck, like that sailboat visualization. When you see endless water in every direction, it's a reminder that the universe is huge and you basically don't matter.
It's a check on our ego. It brings up these deep feelings of vulnerability. It reminds us how indifferent nature is to our existence. The ocean doesn't care if you float or sink. And that triggers a very specific kind of anxiety.
Okay, so if Jung is right, and we're all naturally terrified of this symbolic void inside us, then Hollywood basically figured out how to monetize that existential dread perfectly. Because as much as this is evolutionary, I feel like Steven Spielberg has a lot to answer for.
You really cannot overstate the Jaws effect.
The sources called it a social contagion, and I relate to this so much. There was this anecdote from a reporter who said that after watching shark movies, they would swim in a swimming pool, a clear, chlorinated, well-lit pool.
A safe place.
A completely safe place. And they'd imagine that the painted black lines on the bottom were sharks.
That is a perfect example of how media conditions our fear response. Even when logic tells you, I am in a pool, there are no sharks here, the image is so ingrained that your amygdala, your fear center, it just reacts anyway.
It totally overrides logic. I know there isn't a shark in the deep end of the YMCA pool, but I still swim faster when I cross it.
There's also this really fascinating dynamic I found in the Reddit threads about this. There's almost a gatekeeping war going on.
Wait, what?
Between people with true thalassophobia and people who are just scared of movie monsters.
People are gatekeeping fear. You're not truly scared unless you're scared of nothing.
Essentially, yeah. There's a tension between fearing the void versus fearing the creature in the void. One user noted that being scared of a giant face in the water, which is technically megalophobia, is different from being scared of the water itself because it just continues forever into darkness.
You know, I actually get that distinction. If you drain the water and there's a giant monster, that's just a monster movie. But thalassophobia is the water itself being the monster, the nothingness is the threat.
But then we also have to acknowledge the concept of aesthetic horror. A lot of people on these forums aren't just there to be scared, they're there because they're fascinated. It's almost like a gore page for nature lovers. They get an adrenaline rush.
It's the I can't look away factor. I do that. I scroll through pictures of those oil rigs and I hate it, but I keep scrolling. It's like picking a scab.
That mixture of fear and awe is sometimes called thalassophilia. It's a complicated relationship. We love to be humbled by something bigger than us.
Speaking of things bigger than us, let's talk about specific triggers. Because it's not just open water. There are subtypes of this fear that are surprisingly specific and honestly really creepy. Have you heard of submechanophobia?
Yes, the fear of submerged man-made objects. Shipwrecks, buoys, pipelines, underwater animatronics.
Ugh, this is the one that gets me the most. Animatronics underwater? Absolutely not. Why is a statue underwater so much scarier than a statue in a park?
It links back to the uncanny valley. You know that feeling when you see a robot that looks almost human, but its eyes are just dead.
Yeah, it makes your skin crawl.
Submerged objects do the same thing. When we see a machine or a statue underwater, it looks distorted.
Hmm.
It's covered in algae. It's rusting. The light hits it weirdly. It looks dead or abandoned. It's an object that belongs on land, invading an alien environment.
Right, it doesn't belong there.
So it triggers a fight or flight response because it feels unnatural. It feels like a corpse of an object.
Corpse of an object. I hate that. Thank you. And then there's megalohydrothalassophobia, which is a mouthful.
It is. That's the fear of large things in the water. Whales, submarines, giant propellers.
One of the Reddit users mentioned fearing the hulls of ships specifically. Just being next to a massive ship in the water makes them realize how tiny and fragile they are. It's like being an ant next to a boot.
It is a scale issue. On land, you can usually back away from a large object. In the water, seeing a massive submarine hull looming out of the murk, it just emphasizes your total lack of control. You can't run. You were just floating there next to this leviathan.
And physically, this isn't just being nervous. The symptoms are intense. Dizziness, racing heart, dry mouth.
And a feeling of impending doom. That's a very specific psychological symptom. It isn't just, I might get hurt. It's the absolute, unshakable certainty that something terrible is about to happen.
Now, we've talked a lot about how this fear affects us humans. We're sweating, panicking, posting on Reddit. But here's where it gets really interesting, and honestly, a little sad. This fear has a cost. And the one paying the bill is the ocean itself.
This is a critical point that often gets overlooked. If we connect this to the bigger picture of conservation, our fear has real-world consequences. Dr. Melissa Betters wrote about this in Deep Sea News. It's the out-of-sight, out-of-mind problem.
Because we view the deep sea as alien or hostile or nightmarish, we don't care about it as much as we care about, say, the rainforest or cute pandas.
Exactly. We have a massive empathy gap. There's an ugly animal bias. Take the blobfish, for example.
Oh, the blobfish, voted the world's ugliest animal. It looks like a melting, grumpy pile of pink slime.
But here's the thing that people don't realize. It only looks that way because it was violently depressurized. In its natural habitat, thousands of feet down, the pressure holds its body together. The blobfish looks like a perfectly normal, structurally sound fish. We dragged it up to our world, his body collapsed from the pressure change, and then we mocked it for being ugly.
Wow, so we basically exploded it and then made fun of how it looked. That is actually heartbreaking.
It really is. It's a form of aesthetic discrimination. We regulate conservation funding based on how much we want to cuddle the animal. If the blobfish looked like a baby seal, deep-sea mining might be illegal by now.
That's a heavy realization. We demonize deep-sea life because we don't understand it and because it scares us.
And because we demonize it, there's very little public outcry when we destroy it. Deep-sea mining, oil drilling, ghost gear, these abandoned fishing nets that just float around killing things forever, these destroy entire ecosystems. But because we're terrified of the deep, we let it happen.
So our thalassophobia is actually hurting the planet. It lets us treat the ocean as a monster instead of a victim. So what do we do if I'm listening to this and I can't even look at a picture of a submarine without hyperventilating? Is there hope? Or am I just destined to stay on dry land forever?
No, there's absolutely hope. You don't have to live with the terror. The sources outline several effective treatments. The gold standard is usually CBT, or cognitive behavioral therapy.
That's about reframing your thoughts, right? Catching yourself before you spiral.
Correct. It's about catching that catastrophic thought, there is a shark in this swimming pool, and challenging it with logic. You have to actively debate your own brain. I'm in Ohio. This is a chlorinated pool. There are no sharks in Ohio.
And then there's exposure therapy, which sounds like torture, frankly.
It's difficult, but highly effective. You take gradual steps. You don't just jump into the ocean. First, you look at a photo. Once you can do that without panicking, maybe you watch a video, then you stand on a beach. Then you wade in up to your ankles.
And I saw there's a high-tech version now, too. VRET, virtual reality exposure therapy.
This is fascinating. You put on a VR headset and simulate being underwater or on a boat, but you're physically safe in a therapist's office. It allows you to confront the fear in a totally controlled environment.
You can just take the headset off.
The second it gets too real. Now, for those who aren't going to therapy, there's also just coping mechanisms. Visualization, deep breathing, and the float test.
What's the float test?
It's the realization that avoiding the fear reinforces it. If you run away from the water every time, your brain says, see, we ran away and we survived. The water must have been dangerous.
Right.
To break that loop, you have to let your brain learn that the water won't actually hurt you. You just stay there. You float. You let the anxiety spike, but eventually when you aren't eaten by a monster, your brain realizes, oh, I guess we're okay.
That sounds incredibly hard to do in the moment.
It requires a lot of patience and courage, but it does work.
So let's recap. On this first episode of Uncomfortable Depth, we've learned thalassophobia isn't just being scared of water. It's this complex cocktail. It's our evolutionary instincts trying to keep us from being eaten.
Hmm.
It's a psychological projection of our own inner darkness. And it's a whole lot of media conditioning telling us everything has teeth.
It's the brain's way of protecting us from the great unknown. But we also learned that while the fear is natural, letting it prevent us from understanding the ocean has really negative consequences. We're letting our fear dictate the health of the planet.
We have to stop looking at the ocean as a monster and start seeing it as a vital part of our world that needs protection, even if it is a little spooky.
Even if it has blobfish.
Especially if it has blobfish. Before we go, I want to leave you with one last thought to mull over. We talked about Carl Jung earlier and how the ocean might reflect our subconscious.
Yes, the mirror of the soul.
So, here's the thought for the day. If the ocean is a reflection of our subconscious, maybe our refusal to look into the deep isn't just about a fear of water or sharks or giant squids. Maybe it's about our fear of truly seeing ourselves. What might we find if we finally stopped looking away?
That is a powerful question to end on.
Thanks for diving in with us. We'll see you next time.
Stay curious.